No one's more creative than James Gunn.
Last year I did our shit, world, now it's over.
Why can't we all just get along?
Surely this review won't be divisive whatsoever, right?
Right.
Well, after a ton of anticipation, James Gunn's Superman is finally here. Now, let me preface this review by saying I'm not on either side of the Gunn versus Snyder battle, and in fact, I like a lot of both of their movies. Snyder has had some absolute bangers with 300,
This is Sparta!
Watchmen, and I absolutely love the Snyder Cut. I thought it was awesome. And as for James Gunn, I really like Guardians 1 and 3, and I thought the Suicide Squad was pretty fantastic.
Say that again?
So I went into this movie just hoping for a good superhero film. Ever since Endgame, I can count on one hand how many superhero films from Marvel and DC I actually like. So I was hoping this movie would propel superhero films through the next decade. I mean, it's Superman. You can't get much more iconic than that. This is a dense movie with a lot to talk about, so I'm gonna just kind of rattle off some of my thoughts. Warning, there will be spoilers. I figured the easiest way to do this was to go through what I found to be the positives, the mixed, and the negatives for this film. Real quick, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Pop Culture Paradise will be putting out a lot more content like this in the future. Thank you. Let's focus on the positive aspects first. I love the world that this new DC universe presents. While the MCU feels like basically our real world, this DC universe feels more fantastic and whimsical. Even when supervillains and kaiju show up downtown, the citizens are kind of just there looking like it's another day at the office, and not in a way that they're bored, but in a way that conveys, yeah, this type of shit happens all the time. Which I like because it conveys that the fantasy elements of this world are so deeply ingrained in society that a lot of people just understand it to be part of daily life. And this goes straight back to the comic book philosophies of DC versus Marvel. Marvel, no matter how otherworldly or fantastical the concepts they introduce are, it's trying to present the world outside your window in order to ground all their stories in some sort of reality. DC, on the other hand, presents their universe through a mythological framework. The heroes and villains in this universe are conveyed as larger-than-life entities, literal gods and monsters. And Gunn does a great job putting this on full display. This new universe is brimming with possibilities, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it going forward. On that note, I love how out there some of the sci-fi and fantasy elements are. Gunn and his creative team clearly aren't afraid to dive into monkeys on computers, trolling Superman online, Metamorpho making a son in the jail cell. The concept of using a pocket dimension as a prison in itself. As wild as some of these ideas may seem, if you're a comic book reader, this is everyday fare. One of my biggest critiques with the MCU recently is that it feels like they're almost embarrassed that they're adapting a comic book. There's like no sense of earnestness, and it feels like at every turn they have to be like, oh, isn't this stupid? Haha, we have to make fun of everything now. That isn't to say that there isn't some of that same self-deprecating humor in here. I mean, Gunn directed Guardians of the Galaxy, right? I mean, he's somewhat guilty of doing that in his films. However, Gunn doesn't make fun of each of these ideas every single time they appear on screen. His inclusion of all of these wacky concepts shows that ultimately, no, I really do like these things and I want the audience to enjoy them as well. Whether or not you enjoy these larger-than-life fantasy elements, I'd way rather see these types of things than the corporate, bland, approved by 50 people in a writer's room ideas that have sucked the life out of the MCU.
I'm gonna suck you dry! Huh? You hear me? Do you get it now?
I get it! Suck me dry!
Next up, let's talk about the cast. I think everyone here portrays their character very well. There wasn't any one actor or actress where I was like, okay, maybe we should have got someone else for this role. But let's be real, even if every character in the movie was great, if Superman wasn't, then it wouldn't matter. And I have to say, David Cornsweet does a great job here. He portrays Superman as a genuinely good guy and kind of a Boy Scout who just wants to save the day, make sure people are safe, and prevent anyone from dying. He's a genuinely likable person, and you really want him to succeed throughout the film. He doesn't come off as stiff or uninterested or unrelatable. This is someone I can get behind. Everyone was pretty solid. Lois was pretty good. I thought Lex had moments where he really shined. The Justice Gang I liked a lot more than I thought I would. Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific were maybe the standout characters of the film. But as I'll get into later in the negatives, if I'm saying that two other superheroes were kind of stealing the show instead of Superman, there's kind of a problem there. Either way, the cast did a good job with what they were given. And I know we're still on positives, but I have to talk about the double-edged sword, which is the plot. Gunn decided to skip most of the origin story and just drop us in year 3 of Superman being Superman. And the plot just whips around. It's go, 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 go from the beginning. And that never allows you to get bored, but it also doesn't give you a whole lot of time to breathe with what's going on screen. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big anime and animation guy, and a lot of those episodes are only 20 or 30 minutes, so you have to pack a lot in. And in that way, this movie reminded me of some of the Justice League or Superman or Batman cartoons where there's a lot going on in a little time. But this is a blockbuster feature film. This is a completely different format, and it doesn't necessarily translate very well. While this Saturday morning cartoon style has its benefits, it absolutely has certain drawbacks. I know this is supposed to be focusing on the positives, but I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention some of the negatives when talking about the pacing and plot. Sorry, the Justice Gang. From all the promotional material, I had no idea if I was gonna like these guys or I was gonna absolutely loathe every time they were on screen. Thankfully, it was the former. Whenever they were on screen, it was almost like a proof of concept that Gunn could handle a Justice League International movie very well with Guy Gardner and some of the other characters in there. Probably better than he could handle a Superman movie. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. As I mentioned earlier, I really liked Guy Gardner. I'm always a fan of cantankerous kind of asshole characters, and Nathan Fillion did a fantastic job portraying just that. He was funny, he was an asshole, and that's exactly what I was hoping for. A lot of the conversation online has been about Mr. Terrific, and I'm not even gonna lie, I'm not the biggest DC fan. I know who he is, but he's like a C-list character at best. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because that's what Gunn does. Take a relatively unknown character and make them pretty badass. He was no nonsense. He probably had the most aura out of any character in the movie. He didn't take no shit from anyone, and he was just really entertaining anytime he was on screen. And Hot Girl, although she has a lot less development and less to do than the other two, she was fine. My favorite scene in the whole movie probably was when the Justice Gang and Superman were fighting the kaiju. And not just because I'm a helpless Godzilla shill, okay? Superheroes fighting some giant monster in the city that they have to defeat is one of the most classic comic book scenarios that you could ever envision. Although some of the humor, as we'll get to, really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I thought it was really entertaining how Superman was trying to get the kaiju out safely and the Justice Gang are like, nah, let's just fucking kill this thing.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Hot Girl and Guy Gardner just go straight for the eyes.
Pocket sand.
He pries one of them open with one of his constructs, and both of them just start whacking the shit out of it.
What did he say?
With her mace and his other construct he makes, it was pretty funny. The whole sequence made me feel like I was watching the old Super Friends cartoon. I had that VHS and just played it over and over and over when I was little. And right on cue, the Hall of Justice shows up later in the film.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
And I really felt like a little kid. I was so excited just thinking about Batman and Wonder Woman, The Flash, Hal Jordan, how they're all going to be in there eventually, and it got me really excited for where this universe is going ahead. I thought the action was solid, it looked pretty convincing, and just as importantly, I thought the CGI was pretty solid. There's a few goofy shots here and there. I didn't think the computer graphics on Crypto were particularly good, but not awful at the same time. Speaking of which, let's talk about Crypto for a little bit. James Gunn sure does love his non-human, funny support characters, doesn't he? I found Crypto to be pretty annoying in a lot of the trailers and promotional material, but thankfully he wasn't that grating. A lot of the times he was funny and cute as intended, but still, a lot of the times he was used as a cheap pop and he robbed scenes of their dramatic weight. During the final battle, Mr. Terrific's upset that Superman brought Crypto, and Superman's like, well, I couldn't leave him with my parents on the farm, he would have killed their cows. Huh? This dude sounds fucking nuts. What do you mean he's gonna kill the cows? Send him to Dog Alcatraz or something, Jesus.
He's a very naughty boy! Now go away!
The color grading and cinematography is something else I'll touch on briefly. I thought the bright colors really worked for this universe. All the shots were pretty well thought out. Some of the fisheye lens shots I wasn't a huge fan of because it made you feel like you were farther away from the action than I really wanted to be. And although some of the fisheye lens shots were kind of unnatural, I thought most of the camera work was solid. This is the same cinematographer who did The Flash, and when I heard that, it was like warning bells going off in my head. But with how good the movie looks, I would have never guessed that if I didn't already know beforehand. Additionally, there are some thematic decisions that I found to be very well executed. Although the whole clone thing I thought was telegraphed from very early on, I saw it as a metaphor for him struggling with his identity. Once he realizes his parents are basically Viltrumites and his dad is Omni-Man, he's struggling with who he really is, and what way to better personify that than fighting a clone of yourself. Similarly, even though it was a bit of a logical leap that Lex was controlling Ultraman like a Mortal Kombat character in real time, like surely there's a more efficient way to do this than just shouting out commands, right? Like, can't Lex make some instantaneous mind control or something? I mean, he made an interdimensional rift like it was nothing, but alright. Still, I liked how it exemplified how Lex was manipulating everything and everyone he could throughout the film. I mean, he's behind the world almost being destroyed and the social media campaign that's intended to ruin Superman's reputation. And although he cannot physically match up with Superman, it showed that a narrative can be just as hard to defeat as a supervillain. My last positive is the emotional scene between Pa Kent and Clark. It's a beautiful father-son moment in which Pa Kent tells Clark that, look, I don't care what anyone's saying about you, your actions are what define you, and we will always love you no matter what. I think the biggest key in this scene is that it's given time to breathe, and it's not undercut by any jokes. And that's gonna lead us right into the mixed aspects of the movie.
Leave me alone!
The most mixed aspect of the movie was easily the humor and the tone. I mean, it was just all over the place. I get after the dark Snyder movies, you're trying to be more lighthearted and you're trying to be more uplifting and funny, but there are a lot of moments in here where the humor just destroys a dramatic moment. I know this is anecdotal, but there were a lot of times my theater was absolutely silent when there were comedic breaks for the audience reactions. I mean, people were just looking around like, is this supposed to be funny? And I really like James Gunn's humor. I mean, I'm accustomed to it. I was looking forward to some of it, but it feels like in trying to avoid what Snyder did, they completely did a total 180 to the max, and there is little to no seriousness in this entire movie. The humor feels cynical, and it doesn't really match with the hopeful, optimistic tone that Superman is supposed to embody. Like in the first Avengers, there's a lot of quips, right? I mean, it's what established the typical MCU humor, but there's a lot of serious moments too that are given time to breathe and have impact. Like when Hulk turns to Captain America and says, "That's my secret, Captain, I'm always angry," and turns around and punches the Leviathan straight in the face and it crumples and explodes. No one's like, whoa, he wasn't kidding, he was angry. It would just ruin the scene. Or when Iron Man goes through the portal with the nuke, Hawkeye doesn't look up and say, whoa, there he goes. That would be dumb. Don't get me wrong, I laughed a lot during this movie, but these types of quips work a lot better for the Guardians or Suicide Squad than Superman. There were a lot of times where I cringed at certain lines because it felt like James Gunn was some edgy theater kid trying to be clever and funny rather than actually being clever and funny. Perhaps that joke was not clever and funny, but I didn't get paid millions of dollars to direct the foundational film in a new series that an entire studio's success will depend on. And yeah, if you're a Snyder bro, you're gonna absolutely hate this movie. Even though some of the comedy worked, like I said, every single time there was a serious moment that I was invested in, it was undercut by a joke. And I really wish James Gunn could help himself, but clearly he couldn't in this instance.
Help me! Help me! Nigga!
Lastly, let's talk about the negatives. And there's quite a few, unfortunately.
Look at you! You're freaks! You guys aren't crazy! You're just stupid!
Kind of how I've been alluding to, the biggest problem with this movie is that the plot never has any time to breathe or focus on one specific thing. It feels like at least 20 or 30 minutes was left on the cutting room floor. While there's a lot going on,
What the fuck is going on?
if there were more context and more scenes explaining characters' motivations and how certain things in the plot worked, I really think this could have been one of the best superhero movies ever made. It feels like they were right there but didn't quite dig deep enough to reach those diamonds.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
And that really sucks because with a few changes, this could have been an all-timer. What's my other biggest problem with this film? Superman has no aura.
It's true. It's true. We're so lame.
I mean, seriously, dude, everyone in this movie treats him like a joke. The Justice Gang don't respect him, Crypto doesn't respect him, Supergirl calls him a bitch at the end. This is freaking Superman we're talking about, bro. What the hell? This is not how he should be depicted. When Superman walks in the room, he commands presence. He is a god. He is the strongest hero on Earth. He is the top dog of the top dogs. Why is he treated like an absolute clown in this movie? And it's not just the characters that disrespect him. The script doesn't respect him. He gets his ass beat time and time again, over and over and over. He is the strongest person on Earth. What are we doing here? How is it that Crypto is having an easier time fighting Ultraman than Superman? Tell me how that makes sense. Why is the dog stronger than Superman?
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
A popular online debate is who would win, Superman or Goku. And in this instance, this version of Superman would have gotten his ass kicked by Goku. I don't even know if he would have to go Super Saiyan to fight him. Like, seriously. Also, he just has no authority and no agency. He's not telling people what to do. He's not giving directions to the less powerful heroes. He's just kind of along for the ride, and he doesn't feel like Superman. I mean, he does in some moments, but all of that is just lost in this adaptation. I don't get it. Like, he doesn't feel like a leader. He doesn't feel super. He just feels like a chill-ass dude who doesn't want to step on anyone's toes, and I mean, it just doesn't work for me. This isn't to say David Cornsweat's bad, not at all. He's actually very good. He's very genuine, and you see that he wants nothing more than to be a hero. He is a hero in the face of all the consequences that come from it, but he doesn't have that aura. He doesn't have that power and authority and that presence that Superman has. He just doesn't have it, and it's not his fault. It's the script. The script just fails him. A common complaint about Superman is that he's too powerful and he's not compelling because he's easily going to win, and that's true if someone writes him that way, but clearly there's decades of Superman comics to disprove this. Still, it's a fear a lot of writers face when tackling the Man of Steel, so Gunn chose to make Superman vulnerable, and that's okay. It creates drama. We don't want a Gary Stu, but all we see is Superman getting his shit rocked. They went the complete opposite extreme to where Superman not only gets defeated, but is repeatedly beaten until the ending fight. Furthermore, he needs help at nearly every turn from other characters to defeat an adversary or escape the danger he's in. It makes him feel too human. We want a relatable Superman, not a block of stone, but Gunn Superman is more like a block of butter, far too soft for my taste. If no changes were made to the script or the dialogue or anything except for Superman having that commanding presence and being a leader and being respected, this film would have been exponentially better for me, and I think for a lot of people who have issues with it. Another thing that I think is a misstep is starting this story in the middle of the action. Don't get me wrong, we don't have to see Superman's origin all over again, but we should at least see him at the height of his powers and kicking ass and doing good before he proceeds to get his ass beat for the entire movie. I mean, the first thing we see is him falling out of the sky after he's defeated. I know that wall of text at the beginning says, oh, this is the first time he's lost a battle, but we didn't see it. This is the first scene of the movie. And speaking about the text at the beginning, whatever happened to show not tell? Now, I love Star Wars and the title crawl is effective for getting the audience caught up on things that they simply don't have time to show in the runtime. But you're telling me we couldn't have cut out some of the jokes to show 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning showing Superman in Metropolis, saving the day, everyone loves him, everyone adores him, he's at the peak of his powers. We didn't have time for this? I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, look at the Batman. It didn't show Bruce Wayne's origin, but it took a few minutes to show Bruce Wayne on the motorcycle going around Gotham City. It showed all the criminals terrified that Batman was right around the corner in the shadows. You don't have to use a lot of time on this, but you have to show us something. Another big problem? There's just too many characters for this short of a movie. I mean, probably the most important relationship is between Lois and Clark, and what, they get like 2 scenes to talk before the end, I think? And I didn't really get why they thought it was a good idea to have the two fight in their first scene together. Like, yeah, they're kissing and flirty and stuff, but then they go right into that interview and start, bickering. Again, show not tell. Show us how much they love each other. Show us why they love each other. Show us, something more than this surface level stuff. It's rushed and it's not really addressed, and we're on to the next plot thread. What about the Daily Planet crew? They get barely anything to do besides Jimmy. I mean, are Clark and Jimmy even friends? You barely see them interact at all. Maybe one scene that I remember. Speaking of Jimmy, was his whole subplot even necessary? Like, yeah, I get he got crucial information about Lex from his girlfriend, but couldn't this have just been done by Lois instead? I mean, was it really necessary to give Jimmy this much focus just because, oh, it's funny, look, Jimmy's some nerdy white boy who gets hosed, and I thought the guy who played Jimmy was actually good. It's just, again, these dumb narrative decisions. Why are we spending time on this? And this leads us to the man himself, Lex Luthor. Ooh.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Besides Superman and Lois, Lex is the character who desperately needed more development. Nicholas Hoult brings that gravitas and commanding presence to the character. He's incredibly motivated, driven, arrogant, evil, sinister. At one point, he just blows a dude's head square off and doesn't give a shit.
Gutter options. Yeah.
He just commands the screen, and he seems like he's 5 steps ahead of everyone else in the film. But as it goes on, you start to question, does his plan even really make sense? Moreover, do his characterization and motivations make sense either? So his plan was to get Superman involved in that overseas conflict with the 2 countries so that he could get the government's approval to eventually kill him. Or at minimum, to keep him in that pocket dimension prison for, I don't know, ever. But then the movie makes you think that's not his motivation when Lois and Jimmy see that he's working with the president or whatever of Barovia in order to gain a whole part of the country, and you think, oh, well, he's obviously just trying to get rich or do some science experiment there or something. But nope. It was what we thought all along. He just wanted an excuse to kill Superman and baited him to get involved in a foreign conflict in order to get him on the government's bad side. Okay, I guess that makes sense, but why did the film present it this way? The whole twist was what we already knew in the beginning. Maybe I misunderstood it, but I'm pretty sure this is how it all goes down. And so Lex is like, okay, we need to draw Superman out. The conflict between Barovia and the other nation is about to boil over, and instead of baiting Superman to go there like you did before, Lex is like, nope, we need to open a rift in space and reality and destroy Metropolis instead.
Boy, are you stupid?
I don't think so.
Lex, my dear, I hate to inform you this, but that's simply retarded. The foreign conflict was a perfect cover for Lex and would allow him to finally get the justification to kill Superman, whereas now you've destroyed Metropolis and God knows how many other cities and how many trillions of dollars of damage you've caused, and what, you just think even if you killed Superman you wouldn't be held responsible? Not to mention how many people you killed by doing this. It's kind of ironic how I'm talking about Superman and collateral damage and foreign conflicts, and I'm not even talking about Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman. It's funny how clear it is how Gunn was trying to avoid evoking anything from the Snyderverse, and yet there's key plot points that are reused here. But let's get back to Lex's characterization. Well, I think Lex is very well portrayed in terms of how sinister he is. His emotional outbursts just don't really feel in character for Lex Luthor. He's far too prideful and composed of a character to just be screaming out of anger or crying in front of his subordinates. Like, I just don't see that happening. There are a lot of moments where he comes off as calculated, reserved, and in control of the situation, but then there's others where he's completely the opposite, and it's just very confusing as to who this guy really is. As for his motivation, Lex is basically driven by envy, and he admits as much at the end of the movie. I thought this was pretty in character and also pretty funny. It reminded me of Eddie Brock in Spider-Man 3.
I want you to kill Peter Parker.
Lex is super arrogant and driven by ego and kind of has a god complex, so I can see this working. However, if he comes off like a sniveling brat and more of a baby than some composed, arrogant badass, then it just doesn't really work. So they got like halfway there and it was really good, and they just didn't nail the landing. It's the execution that fails. I think maybe the most frustrating scene in the whole movie is when Superman and Lex finally confront each other at the end and kind of explain their ideologies and motivations.
Let's celebrate the world's rebirth. We say let it grow.
I say let it die. Let it die, let it die. Let it shrivel up and come on.
Superman tells Lex that basically, look, I'm just a normal guy. I make mistakes, I have fears, I'm not perfect, but no matter what, I try to do the right thing. And just as Lex is going to respond with his point of view on the whole situation, Crypto barges in and grabs him and flings him around like a rag doll, kind of like the Hulk did to Loki, except not well done whatsoever. At least when Loki got flung around, he got to say what he wanted to say before that happened, whereas we never understand what Lex was gonna say in that moment, and we never get any hint towards it for the rest of the film. And that encapsulates most of my negatives I had with the film. There's a lot of good ideas, but the execution just isn't there. Now let's move on to my final thoughts and conclusions.
Okay, the city is flying. We're fighting an army of robots. And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
James Gunn's Superman is very entertaining and has a lot of issues. If they can iron out the kinks, I feel like this new DC universe will be very successful and has the potential to blow the current MCU out of the water. Do I like it more than the Snyderverse? Some aspects yes, and some no. While I like how Snyder made the heroes feel like larger-than-life entities, Gunn has done a better job at making the people feel more relatable. If there was a way to mesh the two, I think we would have the perfect DC universe. And I'm hoping the tone can shift to this happy medium in other projects. Batman should not be quipping all the time, and The Flash should not be deadpan serious. While there is no perfect balance of this tone even in the comics, when shit gets real, the heroes take shit seriously. I enjoyed the humor in this movie sometimes, but like I said, it just feels out of place a lot of the time. I've grown to hate the MCU humor because it robs most moments of its seriousness. And while I can give it a pass here in this new universe with a new Superman, I'm hoping DC doesn't just try to copy Marvel in this respect. We've seen how that turned out before. If I had to rate the movie, I'd give it a 6 or a 6.5 out of 10. I can't go any higher because the movie's just so messy. Even the parts I like just get dragged down by all of the issues. And unfortunately, I'd have to say this is the worst James Gunn superhero movie that I've watched. Not that it's bad, like I said, it's just it doesn't live up to the high standard that he's set for himself. So ultimately, there's a lot of fun to be had, but the plot is just a complete afterthought compared to the spectacle, and that's just not really gonna do it for me in terms of what I want in a Superman movie. Like I've been saying, I'm really excited for the future of this DC universe, but I wish I was more excited for what I just watched in this Superman film, and that simply isn't the case. I'm still confident in Gunn as a creative, but I'm not sure if he was the right person to handle Superman. Will Snyder fans like this? Probably not, and I fully understand why. The best Superman in my eyes is still Christopher Reeve, and that's because his portrayal and that movie just feel timeless. Gunn's decision to focus so heavily on social media within the story makes the whole thing feel very Gen Z and alpha coded. Maybe that's why James Gunn made the narrative so freaking quick. He knew that he had to compete for Zoomers' attention with social media, so let's just put social media into the film. What's the best way to capture a new generation of DC fans? Construct the narrative like an Italian brain rot TikTok.
Tung 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 sahur.
I'm just kidding, the movie isn't that spastic, but I hope these aspects don't age the film and are not a consistent part of the DC narrative moving forward in this universe. I hope the tone of the movies going forward are somewhat similar to this one, but each movie's given its own ability to breathe. Batman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern stories should not feel the same as Superman or one another, and I hope each filmmaker is allowed to show their vision just as James Gunn has here. So, would I want to watch this Superman again? Sure, maybe not right now, but more than anything I want to revisit the DC animated movies and shows. And I guess that's the best indicator right there. This movie got me excited to delve back into the DC universe. And although I can't classify this movie as anything above mid, I'm hoping this fun but flawed entry is a launching pad for this new DCU to soar for years to come. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and leave a comment and a like. It would be very appreciated.